How did you come up with the idea of second-generation social responsibility?
Well, the concept of second-generation social responsibility was a natural progression of working in corporate social responsibility through the 90s and the beginning of the last decade. And as we moved through and evolved the Petaquilla project, we clearly could see that we were moving from a support structure of education, health, nutrition, into a community where those basic elements of the safety net were being addressed fully, and that we are now having interest in entrepreneurial, microeconomic activity in the region. And so in this sense, we started to, with the University of Panama, with the surrounding communities, to look at this opportunity and look at alternatives. And a report by Nature Conservancy at mid part of last decade showed that the existing economic activity in the area, such as subsistence agriculture, extensive cattle grazing, were not going to be sustainable activities given the density and the demographics of the region. And in this sense, we started to work very closely at looking at historical, cultural, and economic factors, and out of that came out of strategy to develop, in parallel to the mining, tourism, and also sustainable agriculture, and generate microeconomic activity through fermenting entrepreneurial initiatives. And that whereas this second generation of social responsibility comes about. And we're active in that as we speak today. And it's a big part of our diversification to plan at some point in this century when mining activity will become a secondary or almost a dormant activity. But it'll probably last more beyond this century. But by then, the diversification of the socioeconomic activity will be such that the role of being initiator of alternate economic activities of the mining industry will have been achieved.
Why do you think it's important for a 21st century company to adopt your second generation concept? Do you think the concept can be extrapolated to other organizations?
Well, I don't think that Petaquilla is exceptional or unique in its second generation. I think that other companies may not fully broken it out into first and second generation, but we already see other companies carrying out lateral economic activity, collateral economic activity in the areas they're operating mines. To what degree they're doing it and to what level of study is it being carried out is very diverse. And in that sense, I think that we're very much at the leading edge, because we, from the first day that we start to evaluate a project, do a stakeholdership analysis and include as part of our project, in the case of Spain, that tourism and agriculture and energy and water management will all be very key integral collateral and parallel activities to our resource development and resource production and transformation, which is obviously our central activity.
What driving forces do you believe are necessary to position Castilla del Oro as a prime international tourist destination?
Castilla del Oro, now in about a year and a half of work, I've been very fortunate to have the emblematic feature of Christopher Columbus, who was understood that Castilla del Oro, which was a historic province of Spain, of the Spanish Empire under Charles V, and whose economic activity was defined as roughly between 1520 and 1670, with really after that a slow decline and sort of extinction with the independence of this region, Panama, in 1821, is an important period whereby a lot of history, Panama being such a critical point of transit, the famous fairs of Portobello in the 1600s, later on, the establishment with the California gold rush of the Panama Railroad in the 1800s, are all indicators of how Panama plays such a key role, which even defines it today as the center of hemispheric logistical and transportation routes. And so when you look at Panama and you define Castilla del Oro, you see an excellent opportunity to share 200-300 years of history, of which there's very substantial infrastructure built here. The Portobello and San Lorenzo ports that were used to transit goods from Latin America, the city of Old Panama, the Cathedral of Natal, which is the oldest church established in the Pacific mainland. Also Taboga, which is the second oldest church established on islands after the famous initial church in Dominican Republic. And so all these historic, religious, cultural infrastructures place Panama in a very preponderant opportunity to show the world, look, this is not only Panama today, it's Panama of the last 500 years. And in that sense, we have, in particularly the central province of the country, plazas which are very similar to those that exist in most parts of Spain, and particularly in southern Spain. And not only do we have the infrastructure, but we have the customs. Our national dish, which we call arroz con pollo, is really no more nor less than a good paella valenciana. And so these cultural affinities, these historical shared monuments provides a very important opportunity. And Spain, being the number one in rural tourism in the world and number two in tourism in general, is a great country, an opportunity to learn. So in that sense, we see a lot of opportunity in developing and integrating our rural communities that have not been as participant in the national economy as they could be. And this is something that clearly will inject into places like the Macarena, Parita, and the historic Cathedral of San Francisco new life.
In conclusion, could you share your timeline for the San Lorenzo, Portobello, and Rio Belén projects as tourist attractions?
Well, I mean, they're already tourist attractions today. You know, in the business of rural tourism, there's a lot of unpredictability. Things can go quickly well for you, or quickly things slow. But given that these landmarks have been here for hundreds of years, they're not going anywhere, and by bringing their cultural heritage and building up onto it, we create micro economic activity, which allows a lot of small entrepreneurs to benefit in many ways, which is very much associated, understood as part of the tourist industry. So that in our regard, it's not that we have some specific goal of visitors or mandated level of economic activity, but that we ferment the knowledge, the microeconomic activity, and the preservation of these goods and of these infrastructures. And already today, many of these infrastructures have very large social events that are part of their annual characteristics, such as the famous Black Christ of Portobello and the famous annual event in the Macarena Parita. Again, all these events exist. All we're doing is really focusing them so that the microeconomic activity collateral to it and the preservation of these historic landmarks is maintained, so that a natural growth structure of economic activity associated with that sustaining history will optimize. And some will be greatly successful, some will be modestly, some may be very little. But by creating the platform and creating the environment and creating the knowledge base and creating the communication infrastructure, we will optimize what available interest there is in these areas.
Why is the slogan for Castilla del Oro, the path of Santiago does not end in Compostela?
Well, I won't say that it's the slogan of Castilla del Oro. I'd say that the path of St. James, the apostle, not ending in Iberia, and that it ends here. It talks a lot about the discovery of America by Europeans brought Christianity and to this region, and that religious tourism is a very important part of tourism within the historical and cultural sense. And today, millions travel the path of St. James from Germany to northern Spain to the place known as Santiago de Compostela. And so in having people realize that the evangelism that St. James brought to Iberia was then brought by Christopher Columbus to Castilla del Oro in the 15th, 16th century, gives them an opportunity to come and continue that pilgrimage that is so much a part of the tradition of Europe, where its continuance was felt, which was in the 15th century in Castilla del Oro.
What religious tourism sites does Castilla del Oro promote?
Well, is the religious sites that Castilla del Oro has interest in and is developing are those that were established during the time of Castilla del Oro, which include Portobello, San Lorenzo, both of them having, Portobello having the Black Christ, and San Lorenzo being named after San Lorenzo. Additionally to that, you have the Cathedral of San Francisco, which was built in the 16th century and is probably the best representation of architecture and religious artwork from that period in the country. Additionally to that, there is the event of the Atalaya pilgrimage, which occurs, and also the Cristo de Esquipulas, which also occurs in Antón. And the whole entire festivality of Holy Week in the central provinces of Panama is a very participative, where literally everybody migrates from the capital of Panama, and millions of devotees go to different places. And in that sense, there's also the Passion of Christ, which is celebrated, the Corpus Christi. And so, again, to really talk about the interest of us in religious tourism is a very vast field with a lot of very organized and traditions established. And what we're going to do again is provide an information channel, provide descriptiveness, provide education, so people can understand how much this is a living force today in the fabric of the societies of Castilla del Oro in the central provinces of Panama.
What is the dream or motivation of Fundación Castilla del Oro?
Well, Castilla del Oro there's a saying that people who are not students of history are condemned to relive it. And in that sense, we believe that by people understanding their heritage, their culture, their religion, they will benefit from all the knowledge base that will bring, and it will clear away potential vacuums of ignorance that sometimes miscue us on how to deal with our own life. That is on a personal level. Castilla del Oro could be a great purveyor of history and experience. On a level of economic activity, well, it'll help understand people that we're nothing less or more than a continuity of things that have passed in the past, and that we should learn to gain experience and optimize the opportunities that brings, and at the same time prepare and manage those things that that will not be left behind when this era comes and goes, like all eras. And in that sense, the richness of our heritage, combined with our modern day technology and economic capacity, will assure that we have at least the right tools at hand to optimize our long-term objectives as a community, as a people,